Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. I am addicted to Facebook Marketplace and to old, antique, vintage, automotive tools and machines. Oh, and mopeds and cars and all that. Yeah. But this, I just bought this one. It came up on Facebook Marketplace, not that far away from me. And if you know this channel, you will know that this is not the first balancing machine. This is a wheel balancer that I have. I have another one from the 60s. Very complicated and simple machine. I love that kind of stuff, and I know some of you also like that because the previous machine got 1 million views. Don't ask me why, but that's gotta mean that I'm not the only person in the world that thinks that stuff like this is cool. This one, I think, is from the 50s, and what this is, I think, is a wheel balancer that relies on mechanical stuff alone. There is no power needed. There's nothing needed other than a wheel and this. I love these kinds of simple things that can help do a job that in my mind is a little bit complicated. Fixing a wobbling wheel due to imbalance, it's always been a bit of a mystery to me how those machines could calculate where to put the weights and all that. Now I can do that stuff myself because the other balancer that I use is actually pretty decent. I would think that this one would be best used on old cars with slim wheels. I'm not sure it will work on modern day cars, but I want to try. But there's two problems. One is I have no idea how this thing is used. So I'm gonna try to just figure it out using what clock mechanics use, witness marks. I'm gonna try to see if I can see from the scratches and so on how this is supposed to work, and then just use common sense. But the problem is that this has been standing in a moist environment, so everything that I think is supposed to move is not moving. So the first thing would be to give it some oil to free it up, hopefully. But first, let me just give you a small tour of what it is, as mentioned. Here we have the name. Pretty cool. Then over here we have a handle with the word statisk or static or dynamisk or dynamic down there. This means that this is able to both do the calibration of static calibration and the dynamic calibration. I'm not really sure in what order you need to do it, because I know that if you do the static and then do the dynamic afterwards, the static will no longer be correct because you will add some other weights. But I think you have to do the static first and the dynamic afterwards. I really hope that someone watching this video will remember this machine or something similar and can give me clues. But up here we have a micrometer, I think is the name. It's supposed to be able to move in and out from this and show imbalance or movement at least. It's currently stuck right here, so we need to do something about that. Then over here we have another handle that is also stuck, but it seems to be able to move this one up, and we have some bearings on each side. I presume those will go up and meet this thingy that seems to be able to move around freely, but it is stuck. But with those pressed against this and this being able to move freely, I think it would be able to mimic the movement coming from the wheel and press on this one, and by that measuring it in some kind of way. Down here we have a bearing, and the bearing got witness marks down here, so I think this part of it is supposed to go over this, maybe by moving this entire assembly up, but it's stuck, so we need to free that up also. Then up here we have the thing that can attach to the wheels. This is also stuck, so it needs to be freed up. But this one is probably the only thing that is not stuck. But if I pull the handle up to static, like so, it moves the entire assembly up, making this one pivot around. So this will now work as a simple bubble balancer. And up here, we have a bubble. So it's just a bubble balancer at the moment. And that's what makes it possible to do the static balancing. And then when you put the handle down again, it's dynamic and it's no longer wobbling around the same way. This is removable, like so. And then here you can see the thing that pivots up when you do the static balancing and falls down again. What I'm going to start with is to just give it some penetrating fluid all around to hopefully loosen up all the stuck stuff. And now I'm just going to let this thing soak for a bit and then start to clean it up and hopefully free stuff up. I hope. So see you in a couple of hours. Okay, so it's actually 1 day later. I decided to let it soak for a bit longer, and I actually re-soaked it several times. I really hope to be able to loosen the stuff up now. Especially this. This is the important thing. First thing I want to get moving is this one. I think that is just something that pushes onto up against this one with the bearings. Yeah, it's moving. Wait. I'm gonna loop it. There's what I expect to be a hole to loop it right here. Just gonna fill that with oil. That's nice. Then this one needs to be persuaded into moving a bit. That's going to be a bit more difficult, I think. First thing I want to do is to just try to remove the surface rust from up here, so that if it starts moving, it doesn't just get stuck again. Even by applying some pressure, I don't see any kind of movement of the actual clock. That makes me a little bit nervous. Do I dare to give it some small taps with something very soft? I'm really not sure it's a good idea. Did you see? It's actually moving. Picking up something, but it's important to make it go back again also. Oh, it's going up a little bit. I think I'm just going to gently massage it up and down. No affiliation with that channel name, by the way. Yeah. Oh, the springiness has started to work a little bit. Oh no, I didn't notice this. The arrow broke off. Well, that is fixable, at least. Just need to remove that glass. But the springiness has started to work, which is really nice. Yeah, part of me knew that using a hammer would be a bad idea. Even though I was very gentle, it did break off that arrow. I'm not sure how I could have made it move without, though. I need something to just pry this open. There we go. So I'm just gonna try to take the small screws out here, and see if I can take the glass off. I probably also will take these out to see if I can loop it up a bit better in there. It seems to be at least starting to work now. A bit of more massaging and it should be fine, I think. I'm just trying to keep the workspace a little clean. There we go, it's apart. Here we have the needle that we want to re-glue or solder or whatever to this point. I think it's already been done once before. This I think is a piece of glue. Wouldn't that be soldered on? I think. I can now take everything apart and clean it up because a lot of oil came in here, which is good because it freed up everything, but it's also probably good to clean it out. Woohoo! There we have the internal and the spring that makes it go back, and the very precise measurement in there with a very tiny. It's a good thing that it wasn't this in here that was stuck, but it was just the points where the rod goes through the bushings because of surface rust. Everything in here is super clean and movable and all that. That's really nice. But I'm still going to lube it from the inside to make sure that it starts moving a bit better. Oh, look at this. Woo! Completely free now. So what I'm going to do now is to put the back plate back on. There we go. Would I dare to solder this on? This could probably be a huge mistake or brilliant. I'm unsure if it's if the heat could mess something up. I don't think so though. I think I'm just gonna solder this little arrow on. Nah, why risk it? I could just use some glue. Like that. I'm gonna let that dry out and concentrate on the rest of the machine. And the next bit on the machine is this one, because I think we're supposed to be able to undo this, because that makes sense for me because of the witness mark on the bearings that will fit on top of the on the inside of the cone thingy up here. But as far as I can see, only if this assembly moves upwards. And let's try to loosen up this. There we go. So what now? I'm not sure if it's this assembly that moves up or this that can move down. Seems as though this is a sleeve that goes into this, but that's locked out by that, which is not something that you can spin on without using tools, but you could on this one. So this one gotta lock this, and it got a flat side right there for it to lock on. So this one got to be able to move up and down. But if this is supposed to move down, how are you going to pull out again? I'm not sure I understand that bit. This bearing is not too great either, but I think I'm going to have to remove the nuts going around to see what this, or maybe I can see it from the bottom end, just to see if I can figure out how it is supposed to work, because I'm not really sure. Well, yeah, I'm not totally convinced that it's supposed to be able to move, but it's very difficult to film this. But there is something down there. The polished part of that rod I would expect to be able to move up until that edge and down again, I would presume. I think what I'm going to try is to undo these and see what happens if I can pull the entire assembly out. But one thing that I'm puzzled about right now is that using my own logic about finding witness marks, I see no witness marks on this metal rod that it has been clamped anywhere else. But it could be behind the bearing, of course. Or if it's just, yeah, it is very loose. So that handle down there is just a cam that pushes on the inside of this. I'm not so sure that I'm on the right path right now. There's also a chance that this is actually a sleeve that moves up and down. And if that's the case, it would also be easier to actually move up and down, because grabbing this and pulling it up seems like a unfinished way of making a machine. So I wonder if this sleeve, but it just so much looks like these are set screws that clamps that one. But they could also be clamping this one. I better try and find the correct size for that. So I guess it's a 4.5 millimeters. Okay, so look away. Maybe a torque could fit. Don't watch. Okay, don't tell anyone that I'm going to do this. As I can see on the size of this, if it's clamping this or this all the way in here. And so far, I think it's clamping the rod in there. Yeah, that's definitely the rod. Oh, that's nice. That means that it is this assembly that is supposed to be able to move up and down. What if I do remove both of these and pull the rod out? It's probably stuck also. But if I can do that, it would be easier to free up this part of it, maybe. Okay, so it's set up in the press a bit weird. It will be difficult to see, but I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure to see if that moves that sleeve out of it. There we go. But now I should be able to put this in the press and force it the rest of the way out. Oi, we got movement. I'm just gonna get some lubricant. I didn't see where the gauge was at, but it took quite a lot of force to get there. I would probably never have gotten it free without taking it apart like this. Yeah, and it's still stuck. That took 7 tons to get it to move right there. Gets easier. So there we go, this is off. I'm just going to try to clean this bearing by putting it some kind of degreaser and then give it some grease again. I cannot really take it apart, or I don't dare to take it apart, it will probably be destroyed. And then I'm going to clean the inside, and then we could reassemble it, hopefully making it slide up and down a bit better. I'm going to let that soak in some petrol. Ignore the sockets, it's just to avoid having to use too much fuel. It's placed like this because it's a bit open on the underside, this bearing, and I can just spin it and actually sort of hear the contaminants disappear from the bearing and go into the petrol. But I'm just going to let it soak for a bit and go in and take a cup of coffee and then get back to work on this. So next up, I'm going to clean up this because it's got to be this corrosion that is the problem. It seems to be sliding from around there to there. Up here we got some nasty markings, but I don't think it goes that high. So especially between these points, needs to be cleaned off. And yeah, I could just spit on that thing and use some steel wool, but I'm going to use WD-40 and a abrasive pad. So with this a lot cleaner, I'm gonna apply some grease. To it. And hopefully it will be able to slide in the sleeve. So after a bath, it is still noisy, but it doesn't sound as though it is full of debris like before. So I'm gonna try to put in some grease, and then that's that. I can just about see the balls inside the bearing through that gap right there. I think I can be able to force some grease in there. Well, it's better. Not perfect. I'm going to give the inside of this some of this abrasive pad thingy also. And then let's see if this can be made to slide. Of course, it needs to go past those scarrings in the shaft up here. It is moving. This is where it clamps, so it doesn't need to go that far, but take a look at this. Yeah, it's nothing like the feeling of freeing something off and getting it to slide like that. Woo! Remember, I had to use 7 tons of pressure to get it out, so that's pretty nice. So that means that we can put this back together. I set it up to match where it was locked in before. There we go. So the glue has now dried enough, at least, for me to fit this back together. So there we go. I can turn this to zero it out, like that. It is now working as intended. So next up, it will be this thing that needs freeing off and cleaning. Firstly, I will just remove all these attachments for the wheel. And then this one has loosened up itself, which is nice. I would like to remove it still to just clean it up, so it moves as freely as possible. Then it's just a matter of reassembling everything, and then it should be ready to go. So that is that. I'm just going to grease up this surface in here to make sure that it slides freely. There we go. And then I can put this on the machine. So there we go. It's not perfectly flat, my floor, but it seems to be decent enough right now. The bubble, I mean. So that is a static balancing of the plate where the wheel is supposed to be. I think you're supposed to do that first. So if it was out of balance, I would have to put weights on the wheel. But now, if I put it into dynamic, I'm actually having a little issue with retracting this. I think maybe I was a bit too rough with it, and it's the edges on the outer part of this has folded in a bit, making this a little bit stuck. Maybe it's just lacking lubricant. I'm gonna give it some spray and let it soak down. So when using the dynamic thing, this one needs to be retracted. Now I think this is where this comes into play. This one needs to be loosened up and moved up into the thingy like this. So my guess is that this handle with the two bearings is used to stabilize it while I spin it, lifting it off the micrometer. Then I can spin it up to speed and then put it onto the micrometer. And as you can see, it's not moving that much now. I would say that's probably not a lot of imbalance. That I don't know what's good and what is bad, but that is not a lot at least. I think this is how this machine works, and now I have fixed it. I think, at least, so everything moves and is free to move, and the measurement device is working and so on. So I just need a tire, and that will not be in this video. I hope to get some comments on this one with clues on how this is supposed to work, but it would be nice to know how to actually read the imbalances, if it tells me where to put the weights, for instance, or if that's just on feel, trial and error. But it's a very cool machine in my opinion. This is all for now. This is another nerdy piece of old school automotive tech that I now have in my belongings, which is really nice. Next video, I will get a hold of a tire, and I'm going to try to find a tire from the 50s, 60s. One that is not too big, I think, is a good idea. It's not necessarily a problem if it's big, I don't know. But of course it can't be that so wide that it hits this one. I'm gonna see what I can find. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next one where this is actually going to be tested. Remember, you can support me on Patreon if you like. That way I can buy even more of these kinds of things. See you in the next one.